Okay, members and friends, I just turned this thing off because I think it ran out of water. I really do. It was starting to creak in here and groan. So, for the last 10 minutes, I'm not chancing it. I think maybe a jar popped. I'm not too sure. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out in 45 minutes. Okay, members and friends. Anyway, that pot is cooling, right? And I have another book. Now, mind you, they said put the fish in brine. I was going to put this fish in brine, but it was very fresh, so I didn't do that. And it said 100 minutes, so I'm sure the fish will be fine. Now, I don't know what we're going to get when we open the canner, but we'll find out in a little bit. It's still cooling. In the meantime, I bought this old projector months ago, and I came across some clear plastic film that I can use for, hold on, in case you want to read that, that I can use for the projector, right, to draw out things. And since Fukushima is becoming another YouTube issue where some Canadians feel that it's important to travel the coastline and take pictures, and that, in my opinion, are skewed, right? And take samples and look under a microscope what they're looking for. Well, I guess we'll find out when they tell us. Anyway, you know, I've been on the bandwagon with the Fukushima issue since it started, and I've openly spoken about having my family affected by the fallout from Fukushima, because we experienced that, and because I've done food storage, and I have sheets of plastic and tape and wall light switch cover, you know, what goes in behind the cover of a light switch to keep the air out. I have those. Masks. Well, I used to have masks. Somebody took my masks, so I have to go buy some more, but I have full body cover suits. Not a lot, but I have a few. And water. And, you know, I think about it off and on. I try to understand it. You know. So, what I'm going to do, I think... Hold on a minute. Okay. I don't think it's cutting off my head. I'm trying to line it up with this computer screen. Anyway, excuse me. Here's the book. It's really smelling like fish in here. Well, not that bad, but you know, it's muggy. 100 minutes with a 30-minute, 1 hour. What is it? A 1 hour bath in a brine solution, but I didn't do a brine solution. I just added a little bit of salt. So I'm going to stick with the 100 minutes because they were just the 250 ml, right? Half pint jars. So it should be fine. Anyway, okay, what I was talking about was, I mean, obviously I'm maxed out with my life, right? We all know that. I never know from one day to the next what the heck is going on. Like, I don't. You know, I work for free. I have experienced major bone loss over the last couple of years. That's been like astronomical in my opinion. I do not think that my weight has gone up since my grandson was taken from the home. Right? Because within 3 to 6 months after he was gone, I went down to almost 90 pounds. And normally I'm 105. So that's a lot of weight loss. 91 pounds, 92 pounds, 90 pounds. Soaking wet. With no clothes on. Right? Forget the wetness. You know, there was no rain that day. And I've done like a humongous amount of yard work, and I've come into contact with, I'm doing walnuts, people. Black walnuts, right? So anyway, I've come into contact with a tremendous amount of contaminants in this yard. And not only that, but it blows around because you can't get a handle on it, right? And I don't eat very well. I eat, but I don't eat probably as much as I should. Other people, I cook more for other people, right? I eat on the fly. I can go all day without eating. I smoke and I drink tea. And every now and then I'll have coffee. And once in a blue moon I'll have a beer. But other than that, and water. You know, if I'm outside sweating like a dog, right? So when I buy this fish, right? I'm getting to the point here. When I buy this fish ends at $5.50 a kilogram, which is 1,000 grams, right? Works out to whatever it is, $2 and some odd cents. But the thing about strontium 90, okay, because since we're talking about Fukushima here, calcium in itself, in terms of like a strontium, is weakly, you can call it here, weakly radioactive. So calcium itself, from what I'm reading here under Wikipedia, I guess it is, it carries its own radiation to some degree. And there's something else here too, but we're just talking about this, right? But strontium 90, which is more radioactive, I suppose, is created from, you know, bombs and nuclear plants and the waste of all that, right? And because it's based, I guess, out of a calcium earth element, or compound. It's not an element, it's a compound. Just reading fast here, people. This is what I'm going to get to here in a minute, okay? Because I really want to understand this. Because my bones are, you know, I'm 52, right? I smoke, I drink tea, I consume a lot of sugar, I overwork to the point where I'm exhausted, and it's ongoing, non-stop, to the point where, you know, I feel like I'm on a slave ship here with this house. And, you know, like, how long do I want to continue on with this bandwagon, having to worry about things like the porch with that underneath the plastic with it come crashing down? I mean, who's going to clean that up? Me. Right? Never mind digging in the dirt and whatever else I do in a day. Outside, that is. I still have to do that bathroom, people. And, so, because it's a calcium, I guess it goes to the bones. It likes to seek the bones. I was reading another page. And that's what makes it potentially dangerous, because it's more radioactive, from my interpretation, to just normal everyday calcium. So, where's this all leading to? Well, I just don't want to, I'm not trying to be no professor here, right? I mean, I got other things to concentrate on, not worrying about strontium 90 as only one radioactive, you know, element or compound or isotope or whatever you want to call it, right? But I guess, you know, as a hobby, or, you know, for the sake of my family, for the sake of, you know, where we're going in the future, and I'd like to know, you know, I don't like to be led in the dark. I don't think anyone really likes to be going through the dark while having somebody hold their hand that you can't necessarily trust. And when the government's leading you through the dark, and they're keeping you in the dark, and they, you know, they just, shit happens, well, you know, I guess you have to find some time to try and educate yourself so that you're not so helpless. You know, knowledge is power, right? Knowledge is action. You know, knowledge is self-empowerment, right? You can do things with knowledge. You can find ways to protect yourself, or to build around it, and you know, make things better, or to prevent things from happening, or at least come to terms with it. But to be constantly led through the dark, which is little blips and blurbs of whatever you're being fed, however it's being fed to you, you know, that could be potentially very dangerous. So, you know, what I'm going to do with this little projector, because that's why I put it on myself, because I got this little projector that I bought It's the old school that they used to have in the schools with the sheets of plastic, right? I got my, and then another day, you know, when I was shopping, and then I came across an old, you know, pull down screen, right? And I'm like, I'll use that one day, you know, I'm going to do something. You know, one day there would be some people there, and, you know, or I'll do it with the kids, or maybe I'll use it for a YouTube video, but I think that'd be, like, cool, right? And, you know, it's something that you can, you can add on to, right? Because it's sheet after sheet after sheet, and that's when you start building more knowledge, more knowledge. Now, the thing is, I don't have a lot of time, so everything's got to be on the fly, so I'm thinking, okay, well, if I bring out this projector, I ain't got no room in here, so, you know, I might have to take it downstairs, because I'm setting up a little sewing room down there, right? And right now it's not really being utilized. So setting up a projector and putting a screen there, and then, you know, making a couple of plastic things, just whatever, quickly. You know, my son goes to school, like he's in college, and he understands a little bit of medical stuff more than I do, right? In terms of body, because that's what he's learning now, right? And I've got lots of books around here, so I'll pull out a few books, and I'll pull out the old projector, and I'll take it downstairs, and I'll set up the projector screen, and I'll even attempt to try and make a few slides, and then, you know, put the camera on there, talk through it, and then maybe try to incorporate that into some of these videos versus saying, well, members and friends, I just cooked myself up a whole lot of radiation, and I think I just broke it in the pressure cooker. So what's going to happen when I open the you know, when I open the lid? Is all this radiation going to come out because my jar broke? I'm exaggerating here, people, obviously, right? But you get my point, right? Because, you know, am I putting my family more at risk by buying salmon ends that come heavily inundated with salmon bones? That's why they're called ends, and that's why they're cheap. But, you know, is there strontium 90 more in that fish bone piece ends versus what I cooked up today? I wouldn't think so, though, because because the bones are in the fish. I can't cut fish very well. You know, just stuff it in the jar. As a matter of fact, I made them too high. I was supposed to leave at least an inch in the jar, and I think I brought them up to almost a quarter inch. So anyway, I'm tired. I still have to do peaches. I ran across some peaches, so I want to make some peach jam and some peach marmalade. I'm doing some green tomatoes because, you know, it's survival of the fittest plant out here right now. So, you know, I'm picking them now before they're spoiling, because some of my tomatoes are spoiling, right? For, I guess, lack of water, or maybe, I don't know. You know, I mean, but they're still producing fruit, right? So it's only here and there. So anyway, I'm going to do some green tomatoes. And what else is there? I have, oh yes, and these black walnuts. And now I've decided I'm going to make myself some ink so that I can paint my palettes and save myself some money on some stain. So I pulled out my old little, what is this called? Electric, you know, element. It was just a little one, right? I ran across that in a thrift store too, and I said, I'm going to need this one day. I don't have one. I better buy it. 30% off for $5 is a pretty good deal, right? And I'll tell you, I'm sure glad I got it now, because I've got all these walnut husks, and over the next week or so, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'll be making some moonshine, people. I'll be with my jug, like, here we go, here we go. It's going to be great. It's going to be great, yeah. And then I'm going to take that ink, stain or whatever, and I'm going to go paint my palettes so I can save myself a few dollars on a little bit of paint, or just a few dollars, right? Anyway, I'm going to try it. We'll see. So I got like 3 projects on the go here, right? Salmon, peaches, well, 4, tomatoes, and I still have to do these walnuts. It's food harvesting time. And then, of course, the weeds are growing in my yard, like all over, right? And that's the thing. This is why I don't know if I want to continue living in this house, because I'm tired of spending my summers year after year picking out freaking weeds. If I wasn't making this food, this is going into a rant now. If I wasn't making this food, I started off with what, blackberries? I think it was. I started off with I got blackberry jam all over this house, right? And, you know, I've done plums, and I'm saying to my dad, well, no, we can't just have purple jam. You know, we need a little color in there, right? So strawberries right now are too expensive. And Anyway, I got like 2 boxes of peaches, one flat, right? For $20. I thought, well, I'll make the peach jam because that will, kind of spice it up a little bit. I just heard a can popping down, so that's good. So, 1 can made it. So, anyway, yeah, weeds all over my yard, people. I've been in the house for going 4 weeks now, maybe pushing into the 5th week, just making food. And I've made a lot of food. I did the apples too, right? And I'm still making food. And I even consider the walnuts to be food. I don't know how effective I'll be with it because, I don't really have a place to lay them out. And I read last night that it's better to, I'll talk about that on that video, but I read last night on the walnut video, I read last night that, that's why I'm tired, people. I'm reading. That's all I'm doing is just reading, right? So, and then I'm reading and I'm doing, okay? And then it's better to husk the walnut when it's green, not so much when it's black, because when it's black, it starts getting into the nut, right, itself. And I also cracked open a nut last night because it came to the surface, right? But I also read somewhere in my mix, right, that some nuts will come to the surface even though they have adequate meat inside, and that's because their shells are thin. Oh, well. We're talking about bone density, bone mass, and walnuts and their shell mass. So maybe there is a correlation in there. Because I cracked it open, because it's not like I want to sit there and scrub all these nuts to end up getting, out of 25 nuts, only 5 that float, 5 that sink down to the bottom, and the rest of them float up to the top. So before I throw out 20 nuts, I'm going to either, one, drill a hole through them and hang them in a chain and make a little wind chime or something and do something with the kids or something, or I'm going to crack open a few, and I did too, and both of them had good nuts in them. So the one article that I read where, that it could possibly have a thin shell. So it saved, we'll see. So, okay. So what am I talking about? This projector, right? I'm waiting for these canned salmon to cool down. I don't even have a place to upload this thing. I've got some sewing videos on my other computer over there, but that thing takes like 800 hours to do something on. I don't know what's wrong with it. But anyway, I'll try and get this going in the next upload in the next couple of days. And I'll be done with half of what I've already talked about. But in the meantime, so I'm going to set up this projector downstairs for fun. And the screen. And I'm going to gather up some of my old encyclopedias, that kind of stuff. And I'm going to get I have homeschooling stuff here. I just have to find it, right? The periodic table. And now that I got these, a fair amount of plastic sheets that I can, experiment with, I'm trying to piece some of this together so that it makes sense to the common folk, to the people like me, that, we know how to say strontium 90. We understand that it attracts itself and uses itself like calcium, and it likes to go towards the bone. We know that because it's radioactive, it has the potential of causing leukemia and bone cancer and all this other stuff that it can do, right? But that's all we know. Because when you start reading this stuff, it gets a little more complicated. But if calcium is naturally radioactive, another can just popped, so we got 2 that made it, right? Then a strontium 90, which is much more radioactive, you would think, could be offset somehow. Because for me, it seems like the only way to deal with radiation in your environment that is not natural, calcium versus strontium 90, is to have the defenses in your body to fight off the invaders, the ones that don't belong there. Now, as we age, we do lose bone mass. And with our Western diet, and especially for people like myself who our caregivers, and other people's needs comes first before our own. And then, we become addicted to stimulants to keep us going, because everybody's depending on us, whether they depend on us or they demand it for it to be done. Because I got a lot of that going on in this house right now. I have been for a long time. And, what prevents bone cancer? If you're being subjected to an element that is, I don't know how many times more radioactive than the natural compound or element. This is where, see, I'm confused. Is it a compound or is it an earth element? Or is it an earth compound or is it an element? So maybe if we get that black and white thing going with the projecting screen, with just something so that, because, we all learn differently, right? And if I'm struggling with it, I'm sure other people are struggling with it. And I know there are people out there that can zip doo 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 da and explain it real quick in their terms. But again, what about in our terms? And how does it relate to our families? And am I putting my family at risk by buying salmon bones and pieces, just as they fillet it, and saying, here, suck on that, versus buying the whole fish and letting them eat more flesh and then suck on the bone? How much more strontium 90 am I exposing my family to by feeding them salmon ends versus a salmon steak, which still has bones, right? And if there is a correlation where, it can be 1, 2, 3, 2 more for sure, so that's 4 people, possibly 5 cans that made it. Like, you don't know how panicky I got there. The burner was underneath was getting real red, and the canner itself was starting to creak because it was heating up with no water in there, right? So I'd be surprised if there's any water in there. And my instincts are screaming, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. And I'm like, yeah, but I did read, you can safely do it at 100, right? 100 minutes, you'll be fine. Like, it's better to be safe than sorry kind of thing. So I took the safe side, right? And so far it sounds like a few cans are sealing in there, so that's good. Because if there is a correlation in terms of, I'm just going to use the salmon as the example, because as you can see, I'm not telling people don't eat salmon because I'm eating salmon. I'm buying salmon. I'm processing salmon. I processed salmon last year. This is my salmon stock. I actually got a lot of salmon in this house, people, unless somebody found some and stole it, because I lost a whole bunch of meat, right? I think my daughter was with me and not doing well. I think she walked off with a whole bunch because I'm missing my beef, I'm missing my pork, I'm missing my chicken. Like nothing is downstairs. It's all gone, right? I know my son was eating some of it, but he said he didn't eat it all. So anyway, if I am putting my family at risk, oh yes, I was going to tell you how much salmon. I got salmon in cans that I bought before salmon started going out of the roof in terms of cost at the store. Okay, I was buying salmon when Fukushima blew up, because I had already made up my mind I was going to go into disaster preparedness. So when Fukushima came along, it was like I was now in full mode, all right? But I think I may have some slightly radioactive dehydrated food sitting in a container that, I've asked my son to maybe try and write a couple places with me, of universities or testing centers or something, to send them some samples so that they can test it to see if there's any truth to that theory, right? Because I was dehydrating at the time of the fallout, because, again, my family got sick, right? But I was already dehydrating, and I had already made up my mind that I was going to do disaster preparedness in the event of something happening and the hydro shut down, and you couldn't get to the grocery store, or there was no grocery store, and the emergency service personnel are coming to your house with a child that needs some help, something like that, or even them themselves that need a meal just to go out there and help other people, because anything can happen at any time, right? It happens sometimes, right? That's why we do disaster preparedness. God forbid if we had a zombie apocalypse, that'd be terrible. So anyway, So I went out and bought all this fish. I got, oh, I don't know how many cans of fish down there, but I got a lot of freaking fish. A couple boxes. I got fish tucked in here and cans of in there, and I got the sardines, right? Lots of sardines too. And it's been sitting there, right? And then last year, I think it was last year, I did salmon, right? And of course nobody wants to eat salmon, so nobody took the salmon. They took the other meat, but not the salmon. But I still have canned salmon. And now I'm canning more salmon, right? And I'm buying these more salmon ends. I think I even have a couple fish in the fridge too, in the freezer. It's been sitting there for a long time. Well, that's another video, right? So I don't know what it is with salmon, but I got salmon coming out of my ears. So I said to my dad, well, now that I've got this salmon, this is the thing my son doesn't understand. Oh, you're hoarding food. Why are you canning this meat and making it so that we can't eat it? I'm like, well, it's $300 or whatever it is, $400 worth of meat. And the purpose of it is to store it and save it in case of emergency. And before you eat it, you have to make more. But when you're spending that kind of money for meat, it's going to take me a little while to catch up to that and be able to afford that again, because I've got other responsibilities in this house, right? So leave it alone. Well, I don't know what the hell happened to it. It went missing, so I'm like $400 in the fucking hole here, right? Because the jars are gone, the meat's gone, but the salmon is still there. Plus I've got the salmon in the cans. Plus I've got these ones coming in, right? So I said to my dad, well, I guess we're going to have to start eating up some of these cans now. Now's a good time to get into the cans. I'm not going to auction it off on eBay, right? And I don't know if it's a good idea to let them sit down there for another 4 years waiting for, the reactor number 4 to flop over so that everybody's drooling for a can of salmon so I can get rich. I think it's time to maybe start recycling this stuff. So that will be another video when I go downstairs and get into my food storage. You'll see. But in the meantime, am I putting my family at a greater risk of buying salmon ends at a cheaper cost, but satisfies the palate, right? It satisfies you. It's enough meat on there for you to get, some salmon. Some salmon is better than no salmon. And personally, I will chew on the bones if they're juicy. That's just the way I am. So, am I sucking up Strontium 90? You tell me. Oh, I just heard another can pop. There was like 14 cans in there, or something, 13 cans or something. And, that's the big debate. There's the debate. That's where we're being led through the dark. Right? Because nobody really knows. And if we do, we're not telling other people. And if we are, we're not telling it to them in their language or pictures, diagrams, and visually to be able to fully understand what we're up against. I mean, God forbid if one of my children developed bone cancer because of radioactive nuclei. Right? I mean, who would want that? And this Russian roulette with these nuclear power plants that are worse than your neighborhood polluter, that's like taking a can of something highly toxic and pouring it into the drainage where it goes down into the river, right? Those ones, the storm drains, storm drains. Like the Pacific Ocean is like Japan's personal storm drain. And what gives them the right to be able to contaminate that drain for the rest of us? Based on economics and politics. Global politics, so that one country can say that this country has this and the other one doesn't, and and blah and blah. Like, who makes these decisions? Obviously the money wheelers and dealers, but at the end of the day, we can still, understand what we're up against, right? And I mean, I want to keep doing videos just because I have a nonprofit. It hasn't gone dissolution yet. I don't think it will for a while. If ever. It shouldn't. There's no need for it. I mean, universal school meal program, that's the top of the pyramid. Everything else, you know, in that pyramid addresses a lot of issues in our community, but at the end of the day, the nonprofit represents a universal school meal program. But I had to come in from the bottom. I couldn't start at the top. I had to come in from the bottom and bring in all that infrastructure to get to the top, right? So, as a founder and president to a nonprofit that wants to feed kids, why wouldn't I be interested in Strontium 90? Not to mention my own kids or grandchild, right? Or even myself. You know, I've lost, what? Think about it. If I 90 pounds, I weighed myself. I was down to 90 pounds from 105. That's 15 pounds in less than a year. Why? Because they simply took my grandson? Is that the only reason? Because I got depressed and ate less than I normally would? I was working just as hard in the yard as I've always been since I moved into this house. So, maybe I've picked up a lot of Strontium 90 in the yard. Because it's not so much salmon, because I just started buying this salmon because it's been cheap. Right? Hell, I won't even let the kids eat the salmon in the food pantry. But it's now time to start rotating it. So I'm going to bring some up and say, go nuts. Right? So I'm gonna work on that. I mean, it's going to take me a little while because there's lots of things I'm working on, right? And this video is behind the one that I have to get ready to convert and everything. That's sewing, but I'm going to put that on a different channel. I'm going to try and break up some channels here. I've got the One New Nations Unity, 775 videos. That's a lot of videos. And when you go on to the main page of my channel, when you start clicking loading, it only goes down so far. So people are losing out on, you know, the beginning stages of what even brought me out into the public. I just didn't show up one day and said, well, I'm going to become a public figure through freaking YouTube. No, my son said, here's YouTube, and he tried to shove it down my throat. You need to do this, Mom. It's like, this is a great way to get out there and, you know, market, you know, tell people about non-profit, you know, like, you're being an idiot, just go do it. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm already in front of a picture camera at the park. I'm already putting myself out there fighting with people over an American flag, all this other shit that was going back in 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because I was doing park events every year, people. Every year. Right? But there's something wrong with this government that we've got in BC right now, because they don't want, you know, I don't know what it is. They're subliminally poisoning people's, I don't even know how to explain it. They're turning the province against each other, you know, pitting one against the other. And it's worse than the crab barrel mentality. So yeah. You know, and it's still there. It's still there. With the economy getting worse, that in itself sometimes is getting worse because nobody talks about it. Nobody wants to stand up against it and say enough is enough already. You know? We're too busy just trying to survive and fend for ourselves and defend ourselves, right? So, you know, I got to keep up the pace. Right? I ain't faking the funk. You know, I'm working on this nonprofit a long time. And I'm still, right now, this is what I'm doing. I'm working on a nonprofit. Okay. So, I will try and get this uploaded within 2 weeks after I get another external hard drive and clear out this one here. It's maxed out. So, we'll see you soon. Maybe soon, hopefully, with the projector. And we'll start with Strontium 90. That's what we're going to start with. Okay, members and friends, today is the 29th of August, and I'm canning salmon here. I bought this 2 days ago, so I have to can these today, and then I found 2 more at a different store. So I'm doing 4 salmon today. I got 36 jars plus 1, makes 37 jars here. And if I need to, I got a few more around the house. I don't think I'm going to need this many, But this is what we're going to try and do over the next couple of hours here. In the meantime, this was at 88 cents at 100 grams, which works out to about $4 a pound. That's cheaper than what I'm buying, you know, salmon ends, right? Okay, well, maybe not. Maybe, I don't know. If they're not doing it by kilogram, they're doing it by grams. So I'll do a little bit of math later. But in the meantime, I just took this fish out of here. Now, this could be because it was tossed around. You know, does it have anything to do with Fukushima? I don't think so. But maybe it does. Who knows? Because we know the Pacific Ocean isn't exactly the healthiest. Now, I had it stuffed in the fridge downstairs, so, you know, maybe it got damaged in transportation when it was caught, or I don't know what that is. And then you can see here too, but it looks like some of the scales have come off, so, well, maybe not. So I don't know. I'll cut that part out, feed that to the cats. And then we'll look at the other fish. 2 different stores. So I can't put fish water onto my camera here. I gotta rinse off my hands. So we'll be back. Okay, so all I got was 12 jars out of the first 2 fish. So we're gonna get them in the canner here in a minute. Okay, members and friends, this is where it gets scary. It was 110 minutes for fish, right? And we're down to our last 15, 16 minutes here. It would be awful if this thing ran out of water. Okay, members and friends, I just turned this thing off because I think it ran out of water. I really do. It was starting to creak in here and groan. So, for the last 10 minutes, I'm not chancing it. I think maybe a jar popped. I'm not too sure. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out in 45 minutes. Okay, now we can all relax, breathe. Okay, part 1 is done here. Now I'm going to go on to the other 2 fish. But in the meantime, these jars are packed tight. Remember I told you, I didn't give them an inch. I gave them that much in some of them. And none of them cracked. Looks like they all pretty much sealed, and if they haven't, they're going to. And I had a little room in there to spare. I don't know what's underneath here. Oh, do you think that would have gotten us through for the next 10 minutes? Now you see my burner. This is what I was afraid of. Look at that. Hold on. Bone dry here. I could hear it. That's completely bone dry. This from here all the way in here. And then over here we got a little bit of liquid. You can see it. So it could have probably went for 10 more minutes. But because my stove isn't level, this would have, I don't know what would have happened to it for 10 more minutes on direct heat with no water. Hard to say, eh? See, if that would have been level, that probably would have got us through 10 more minutes on the pressure canner. But it got 100 minutes. So, we'll be back. Okay, so these ones here, $16 each, $9.90 a kilogram, works out to 99 cents per 100 grams. It works out to, oh, what I think, well, it's a little more than $4 a pound. Not much, right? $4.40 or something like that. So these are, I just bought these today because I knew I was doing some salmon, but I had to go to a different store because the other one didn't have the sale anymore for 88 cents a 100 grams. It was 99 cents, which is fine with me. It's better than $1.40 or whatever else they charge when it's not on sale. So we're going to do these fish now. Okay, so this time we got 16 jars. Alright, and as you can see, I fill them up fairly high. That's about 3/4. That one's about an inch. That one's getting into like a half an inch, right? That one's in a 1/4 of an inch about. So anyway. Oh yes, I wanted to mention, I'm using my finger. I stick my finger in there. Okay, pull it out. It's going at about 3 inches. Oops, sorry. There goes the wandering eye. 1, 2, 3. So there's about 3 inches worth of water in there. That should be fine, I think. And it's still crooked, so I don't know.
I see.
Okay, so I added some more water because the last time I did this, the water was over the jars. And when I put the jars in with 3 inches of water, it wasn't enough. So I added in about another inch. About another inch of water. In terms of where it was at with the jar. So anyway, I added more water. Okay, members and friends. There's definitely enough time. I'm looking at the time. It's 10:51 at night, right? Almost 11 o'clock. This shit's got to boil for 2 hours yet. So, but I'm looking at the water line here, and I'm wondering if this is gonna start shooting off through one of these little vents I got here or something, a little safety valve, or that's awfully high. But I don't know. I don't know what's better. Too low, too high. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, members and friends, it's 10 to 3 in the morning, and I got 29 salmon here, and that's how much water I have left. About an inch. Oops, here goes the wandering eye again. And I'm getting real tired, people, so I gotta get some sleep. Alright.